Time for us to go to the Hotline newsroom where John Mercurio is waiting for us this Thursday morning. John, we've been talking politics for the past 20 minutes, but now we're going to look for some stories from you on politics. What do you have for us today?
I got a couple stories here today, Susan. It was a busy day of fundraising yesterday for the first couple, the president and the first lady, raising money for Republican Senate and gubernatorial candidates around the country. Interestingly, it seemed as though the first lady, though, was just as busy as President Bush. We'll go first to President Bush, who was in Tennessee last night raising money for Senate Republican nominee Bob Corker. They raised about $1.5 million for Corker's campaign against Congressman Harold Ford Jr. Bush said of Ford, Bush talked a lot about Iraq during his speech, and he said of Corker, quote, "He doesn't need to take a poll, he doesn't need to have a focus group, he's a man of conviction, he'll make you proud." An obvious reference to the focus grouping that the Republicans believe Ford is focusing on. Other Republicans were there, Corker and Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist, who of course is vacating this seat, revealing a lot about the strategy against Ford, talking a lot about the money that he's raising outside of Tennessee, talking a lot about the fact that he's lived a majority of his life in Washington, D.C. Remember, his father was a longtime serving congressman before him. Frist said at one point, "Do you think someone ought to tell Harold Ford Jr. that Manhattan and Malibu are not parts of the great state of Tennessee?" Again, a big part of the Republican strategy against Harold Ford. What's notable is that this fundraiser was very public. It was open to the press, and you saw a lot of reports out of it. A lot of fundraisers that the president has been doing over the past several months, over the past several weeks at least, have been closed door. It's been there've been a lot of races, a lot of states where the president's traveled where he hasn't been very popular. Tennessee, not necessarily an exception to that. His approval ratings at this point in the mid to high 30s. Bush was also in Arkansas yesterday campaigning for the Republican gubernatorial candidate Asa Hutchinson. While her husband was in Tennessee and Arkansas, Laura Bush was in Montana and Washington State campaigning for Senate candidates there. The one I want to talk about, though, is in Montana, where Laura Bush was campaigning for Senator Conrad Burns, one of the most vulnerable, as we all know, Republican candidates up for Republican senators up for re-election this year. This story in the Billings Gazette about Laura Bush's campaign stop. Burns has had a lot of people up there over the past several weeks to campaign for him. Vice President Cheney was there, Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist, the NRSC chairwoman Liddy Dole, all up there. But part of Bush's problem, as Liddy Dole acknowledged last week on the record, as he's acknowledged, has been his own words. In fact, he said recently he can self-destruct in one sentence, sometimes in one word. Well, last night was no exception. He had another interesting observation during his appearance with Laura Bush yesterday. While talking about the war on terrorism, he said, quote, "A faceless enemy of terrorists drive taxi cabs in the daytime and kill at night." So Democrats, I'm sure, will be seizing on those comments today as another example of the sort of frank nature of the language that Senator Burns uses. Finally, I just want to go to Virginia briefly, where Senator George Allen is ending a relatively rocky month by launching his first statewide ad campaign. This is an ad campaign that his campaign says will sustain through Election Day. He ran a few ads in Northern Virginia and in Hampton Roads earlier this year in June, I believe, but this will be the first significant buy, and it's, as I said, expected to last through November. It talks about his efforts in support of technology. It doesn't mention President Bush, who again remains relatively unpopular. And notably in this ad, it features a relatively diverse set of school children in a chemistry lab. The Webb campaign, for their part, says they're going to be launching their television ad campaign in the next couple of days. They haven't said specifically when, but while this was going on, Senator Allen campaigning yesterday with Rudy Giuliani in Virginia and Governor Tim Kaine saying that he plans to campaign with Jim Webb throughout the next couple of months.
John, thank you very much. We'll be back to Hotline later on in the Washington Journal on this Thursday morning.